everyone, and welcome to the Debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us. We're in Texas today. The state declared a disaster after torrential downpours have left deadly flooding. And a major move for the environment today as well, a global climate change walkout. Plus, we talked to a young guy who's racking up cash for charity. But first, here are your headlines.
Federal prosecutors now accuse a New Jersey man, Alexei Saab, of supporting Hezbollah.
Investigators say Saab was living in New Jersey and entered the U.S. in 2000, applied for citizenship in 2005, and became a naturalized citizen 3 years later. Authorities say he made 10 trips to Lebanon in the past 2 decades, receiving extensive weapons training on AK-47s and M16s, and learning to make explosives. Court documents show drawings Saab allegedly made of bombs.
The FBI recovering photos and videos from Saab's devices that they say depict his potential targets, including Boston's Fenway Park and the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C.
Bill de Blasio just announced that he is dropping out of the 2020 presidential race. The New York City mayor has struggled to gain any traction with voters since announcing his candidacy. De Blasio saying this morning that he failed to build support because he entered the race later than he would have liked, saying, quote, "The bar is so high so early." He says he will support the Democratic nominee.
Apple's new iPhone 11 hit stores around the world today, causing crowds to gather outside multiple storefronts. This morning, Apple CEO Tim Cook greeted customers outside the Fifth Avenue store in New York City.
Drugstore giant Walgreens is now testing out drones to make deliveries. The pilot program takes flight in Christiansburg, Virginia next month.
We begin in Texas, where the governor has declared a disaster after that tropical storm drenched several counties with torrential rain. Unbelievable downpours, up to 43 inches over 3 days in some areas, stranding residents in their homes and cars and causing hundreds of flights to be canceled. And it's left at least 2 people dead. So I want to bring in Rob Marciano with the latest. Rob?
Hi, Kimberly. What a mess here in southeast Texas. It has been a rough few days here with Tropical Storm Imelda spinning up, moving in and sitting and just dumping all sorts of rainfall across this area. And here in Houston, we still have water that's very slow to drain. Yesterday it was much higher than this with an all-time daily September record of over 9 inches of rain falling here. But just east of here, over the last few days, they've seen 43 inches of rainfall, so nearly 4 feet. So between Houston and Beaumont, Texas, there is all sorts of damage, all sorts of homes flooded, and all sorts of pain as far as what people are going through with their lives. There were 2 fatalities yesterday, one of which was a man that drove into water that was way too deep and he drowned in his van. So obviously a very dangerous situation, but there were over 1,000 rescues as well. High water rescues from people being pulled from their homes, from cars, and a lot of people just getting stuck in their cars, driving into water that was too deep and leaving their cars, abandoning them. There were hundreds of abandoned vehicles that last night were swept up and towed away by an armada of about 150 tow trucks trying to clear this city's roads of those cars. They did a good job of that, but there's still some water sitting around. People were getting creative yesterday with rescues. Good Samaritans rushing in to help people who needed it. One man was held a ladder and climbed up a ladder with his baby, saving that child's life. Pretty amazing stuff. Schools were in session, so a lot of those kids had to shelter in place during the afternoon as the rains came down, and some of those schools were actually flooded. So chaos and frantic parents trying to get to those kids as well. Hundreds of flights canceled, and even the access roads to Bush Intercontinental Airport were flooded and therefore shut down. So if you were able to fly in and land, you were stuck at the airport for 5 or 6 hours until those access roads drained. Operations at the airport will get up and running this afternoon. Schools are closed, and this water will hopefully recede a little bit sooner, but it is a mess here. This is very reminiscent to Hurricane Harvey just 2 years ago that had 60 inches of rain, so we're close to that. And for most everybody that lives here, this is an event that was nearly repeated way too soon. Kimberly?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Unbelievable images, right? So to get the latest on this storm, I want to go to our chief meteorologist, Ginger Z. Ginger?
Kimberly, thank you. I know you've seen a lot of the pictures out of Texas, but let's go ahead and just see a few more, just to emphasize that, 12 to 43 inches of rain can do this. It can shut down highways, and that's exactly what was happening in and around Houston, and certainly east of them, where now we know that what was left of Imelda was the 4th most rain ever in a tropical system for Texas itself, 7th most for the United States. So those numbers are wild to see, and you can almost see the rain band that was set up that we were showing you yesterday. Well, now most of that has moved off to the north and east, but that doesn't mean that you're not under watch or warning yet, because you're going to have tropical moisture still fueling in. You can kind of see the beginnings of it there, just east of Beaumont. So don't let your guard down yet. This is not going to be a day you want to get out and be driving around, because the water has not settled by any means. A lot of that moisture pools up into, say, Arkansas, and then even against a front that's farther north. So in the next couple of days through the weekend, we could see some heavy rains. But even an inch in Houston, Kimberly, could cause some major issues when you're this saturated in the ground.
All right, Ginger, completely saturated. Thank you for the updates. And guys, we move to Washington, where we're learning more about that whistleblower that we told you about yesterday, who lodged a complaint about President Trump and his phone call with a foreign leader. So ABC News has now learned that call was to the president of Ukraine. So I want to go to Karen Travers, who's at the White House. Karen, good to see you today. You know, we heard from Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, but we also heard from the president himself today, yes?
Yeah, just a few moments ago, Kimberly, the president was taking questions in the Oval Office, sitting with the Australian Prime Minister, and he called this story ridiculous. He said it's a partisan whistleblower, and that his conversations with world leaders are always appropriate at the highest level. He's been defending this all day as a beautiful conversation. The president was also asked, though, if he knows the identity of the whistleblower, given that he's making the accusation that this was highly partisan. He said he did not, but he heard they were partisan because he says this was an appropriate conversation.
All right, so definitely we'll want to get the updates as that develops. And I also want to ask you about Saudi Arabia. Obviously in the news, we're seeing new images out from the country. Where does the White House stand on this attack?
Yeah, Iran is looming large here today at the White House, even as the president has these series of events with the Australian Prime Minister. In that moment, a few seconds ago in the Oval Office, the president said that there are new sanctions on Iran's bank, national bank. He said it goes up to the highest levels there. We don't have details yet of that. And the president earlier this week had said they would be announcing new sanctions. But today we're told that the National Security Council is going to be meeting here at the White House to lay out options about what potential next steps the United States could take in response to that attack on the oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, which the administration says were done by Iran. Options include a targeted, limited, proportional airstrike, or potentially no military action at all, or beefing up troops and forces there in the region to defend Saudi Arabia. But the president, though, of course, can be considering non-military options, which he just mentioned, the sanctions, and we'll see exactly what that entails and how high up they do go.
All right, Karen Travers right there at the White House. Thank you so much. So a major protest today. Millions of young people around the world are taking part in a global climate change protest. The younger generation seeming to understand this threat better than anyone, knowing the state of the planet will affect their future. In fact, the slogan of the Global Climate Strike website says it best. It says, "Our house is on fire. Let's act like it. We demand climate change for justice for everyone. We demand climate justice for everyone." So young people from over 150 different countries are putting pressures on their governments to do more to end this fossil fuel era. And all of this comes ahead of the United Nations Climate Change Summit, which is on Monday. It's a very big deal. There were over 300,000 protesters that took to the streets in Australia. And there's protesters in all corners of the earth, from Nepal to Senegal to Bolivia and in London. So I want to go to Maggie Rulli, who's across the pond at the strikes there. Maggie?
Hey, Kimberly, we've been following these protests all around the world. We're in London right now. We're with thousands of people out demonstrating right in front of Parliament. And Kimberly, what you can notice is just the sheer size of these protests, but also the age of people who are out here demonstrating. Nearly all of them are students. This is really a student-led movement. Some of them are as young as 10 years old. Look at this group that we just ran into here. They have been out here all afternoon long. Just some of the many young people, students we're seeing all the way from 9, 10 years old. We met up with a group of 17-year-olds earlier that said it was worth it for them to skip class just so that they could be out here fighting to make a difference, fighting to make a change. They say right now they're fighting for their future and they need world leaders to listen.
We're here because we believe, we're passionate that if we don't change, then catastrophic consequences will occur. That we're here because of that. We're not here because of we believe in any political movement. We're not here because we believe in one particular person. We're here because we believe in a cause and we want change. We want action now.
And Kimberly, we're still waiting on numbers to come in from these protests, but right now organizers say today is shaping up to be the largest climate protest in our planet's history. And again, what's amazing is that it is just young people, students, like all of these guys right here that are the driving force, the momentum behind this huge movement. Kimberly?
Thank you, Maggie. So awesome to see all of the young people out. And if you remember, all of this was inspired by the Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, who just sailed across the Atlantic to speak on Capitol Hill. So take a look.
I am submitting this report as my testimony because I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to the scientists. And I want you to unite behind the science. And then I want you to take real action.
So calm, so powerful, and there are so many other young people that are making a difference. So right now we're going to go downtown right here in New York with our Zachary Quiche. Zachary, good to see you. What's the energy like there?
Kimberly, good to see you as well. The energy is really starting to pick up here. You mentioned Greta and the incredible work that she's done. She is really the person that is credited for much of this movement that has been propped up on the backs of young people. Some 1 million youngsters joined her in May. Today, the real news is that others are joining. Parents, union workers, politicians, everyday people who certainly believe that this is an issue that we need to tackle. I'm here in Foley Square. This event is getting ready to kick off at about noon here in New York City. It is an excused absence for youngsters who had a parental note to get out of school and be here. A couple of the folks that I talked to, in fact, one of my cameraman operators whose daughter is coming here said they'll be coming over here as a group at about 10:30, making their way across the Brooklyn Bridge. So we're starting to see some of those folks move in right now. The plan is to start here and to make their way down to the Battery Park area where they have a set of demands and a set of asks. But the overwhelming feeling here is that this is something that they certainly believe in and they want to be a part of. I'm joined by a young man, if you can join me here, Philakwan, who is responsible and part of a coalition who organized this on a national level. And Philakwan, I got to ask you, what's the sense of what you see out here today and what's the hope of what can come from this?
Well, it's incredible. As you can see, there's already people gathering behind us, and the strike isn't even starting for another good, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. In Germany, they just reported that they had 1.4 million people already worldwide, so that's incredible. Every single big structural change in this country and globally has come only because of grassroots insurgents, the civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movement. That didn't happen because people sat around. They stood up for their rights and demanded it. So that's what's going on here and all over the globe. And so what I really hope is that this grassroots insurgency can crystallize into real, bold policy change, as bold as the crisis that we face.
Environmental justice in particular has been a talking point for many of the Democratic presidential candidates. Mm-hmm. Are they striking the right tone, and do you believe that policy changes in itself are enough to affect the kind of change you're looking for?
I really do think so, as long as these policies are bold, and I do think that they are really getting to striking the right tone. Before, there was almost no discussion of environmental racism or even climate change at that. There was about, I think, 5 minutes and a couple seconds of mention of climate change in the Democratic debates and the general election debates in 2016. So we're really moving the entire tone of the conversation. That's incredible with things like the climate crisis town hall and CNN, 7 hours on TV. Just the fact that there was climate crisis in giant words on a television screens all over the USA is amazing. So I really do think they're getting there, and I think policy change is what's necessary.
The narrative is changing. Some of these marginalized communities are being acknowledged for the first time. Many would say, you have a list of asks. This movement has a list of asks. What are those asks?
So the big one is the Green New Deal. That's that 100% transition away from carbon emissions, so net zero emissions by 2030. There's regenerative agriculture, because we know that our agriculture can actually take in as much carbon as the entire transportation sector puts out. So we need to focus not only on limiting, but really taking carbon out in the ways that we can. There's respect of indigenous lands, because we have to go back to that environmental racism factor. We have to look at communities that we've already negatively impacted through this crisis and go back and give them the justice that they deserve. And then there's, I talked about regenerative agriculture. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. There's the environmental justice aspect, which also covers that. And then, yeah, those are the big demands that we have.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Philaquan. I appreciate it. A lot of youngsters like Philaquan are out here today. I just spoke with a young woman from South Africa. This, in many ways, is an entree to the 3-day summit on climate action that the UN is holding here. And the young folks are excited about it. Kimberly, back to you.
Thank you so much, Zachary. Yeah, so powerful. Philaquan, yeah, the children are the future. So an interesting note here, National Geographic recently put out an article showing how the planet is heating up very fast. They said by the time today's high school seniors turn 50 years old, scientists predict the average number of days in the U.S. in which the heat index is over 100 degrees will have doubled. So that means more devastating storms, more wildfires, and rapidly rising sea levels that will displace millions of people unless something is done. So now I want to go to our Matt Seiler, who's out there in D.C., and check out the strikes there. Matt, what's happening where you are? Lots of energy.
Yes, lots of energy, Kimberly. Hi. We've got probably about 1,500 people out here already, and the crowd keeps on growing. One of the benefits of holding a rally in D.C. as opposed to some of these other cities is ralliers are often able to hand a microphone off to some pretty powerful people. We're told Tom Steyer, who's challenging President Trump, is about to address the crowd, and they're about to march right up Pennsylvania Avenue to the Hill and talk to people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and several other representatives. And huge age range. You've got toddlers, you've got babies, and teenagers who are organizing the event.
And have you been able to talk to anyone specifically?
I've talked to organizers who are hoping the crowd is going to get even bigger, especially along the marching route and as they arrive on the Hill. They're expecting as many as 10,000 people. We're not quite at that point yet, but we'll see. The day is young.
All right, Matt Seiler right there in D.C. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Yes, guys, and as we told you, that's happening all over the world. So it'll be very interesting to see what the numbers are after this is finished. And if you haven't heard, September is National Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrating the history and cultures and contributions of Hispanic Americans who have positively influenced and enriched this nation, from politics and media to arts and entertainment. Incredible people using their platforms to inspire change, like J Balvin, the superstar reggaeton artist, recently taking to Instagram to talk about his struggles with anxiety and depression, a post that garnered nearly 2 million views. So take a look.
Quiero aprovechar para saludarlos, para tocar un tema que muy pocas personas hablan, y es sobre la ansiedad. La ansiedad. Yo sufro de ansiedad y trato de contrarrestarla por medio de muchas maneras, por medio de un psiquiatra, por medio de la meditación, por medio del deporte. Pero mucha gente por allá afuera son ansiosos y no saben que sufren de ansiedad y tienen una vida, una... Cuestiónense y pregúntense si, o busquen ayuda profesional si tienen ansiedad, porque eso no se le desea a nadie. No tengan miedo, peor es vivir así.
Yeah, so you see it there. I mean, these posts are so impactful because they help to continue to break down the stigma attached to seeking help and seeking therapy. If you didn't know, Hispanics make up 18.3% of the population, and it's growing, the largest ethnic minority in the U.S. So it's critical to address mental health, not only for this community, but for the well-being of the country. So I want to bring in Dr. Jane Delgado, a Cuban-American clinical psychologist and the CEO of the National Alliance for Hispanic Health. Dr. Delgado, thanks for being with us today. You know, I just want to ask you first, what are the common mental health conditions in the Hispanic community?
If you were going to focus on one, I would focus on depression. Depression is something which is more common in our community, but what happens is because our people like to do everything themselves, they think they can just get over it by themselves, but that really is not the solution. You need to seek help.
Absolutely. So I want to read this pretty staggering, maybe disturbing stat here. According to the CDC, it says Latina adolescents attempt suicide more often than any other group of female teenagers nationwide. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, that statistic has been around for over 20 years, and we know that these aren't the girls who come over as immigrants, but rather the first generation that is born here. And the reason they have that is probably because it's hard enough to manage that transition from childhood to adolescence to adulthood. But imagine if on top of it, you also had to marry the different cultures, both at home and the greater society. And they may not be the same. You know, for us as Hispanics, being close to our family and valuing spending time with them is something which is, you know, part of our lives. But the larger society wants us to be independent, on our own, rugged individualism. Those concepts makes it very difficult for a young woman to know how to move forward in her life.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think on top of that, less than 6%, this surprised me, less than 6% of therapists in the U.S. Speak Spanish. And even though most Hispanics are English dominant, their experience is a bilingual one. So how does this impact their ability to find the help that they need?
It makes it very tough. Remember that in mental health, that language is not just part of asking a person how they feel. It's part of the diagnosis and it's part of the treatment. So if you don't speak the language, it's very hard to understand the other person. And it's more than just language. Whether or not someone speaks the language is not enough. It's whether they understand and value the culture. Those are the things which make someone feel that the mental health community wants to support them and honors their traditions and their values.
Yeah, and before we go, I just want to ask you, what can we all be doing better, you know, collectively, whites, blacks, Asians, to help sure that the community is properly served?
I think the most important thing we have to do is value each other as people and understand that diverse cultures are wonderful, and that's what makes us a rich nation.
I love it. Dr. Jane Delgado, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes. Very important issue there. And guys, moving on to something a little bit lighter. Remember a few months ago, there was a Facebook page saying to storm Area 51. Well, that event is today and it's underway in southern Nevada. It was an internet joke, but the military is taking it seriously. And as many as 15,000 people are expected to be there. So I want to bring in Will Carr, who's on the ground in Rachel, Nevada, right outside of Area 51. And I heard it's cold there. So Will, what's going on?
Yeah, I got my hand warmers out here. It does get quite cold here overnight in the desert. So like you said, this started out as a joke on Facebook. Remember, it said, let's storm Area 51, and more than 2 million people signed up for that. So the guy who created that post realized that might be a problem, especially when FBI agents showed up at his doorstep. So he actually decided to turn this raid into a rave of sorts and have a music festival out here in Rachel, Nevada, which is the closest town to Area 51. The issue is that Rachel only has a population of 54, and they really don't have the infrastructure to have that type of music festival. So the creator, the first publisher of that Facebook post, realized this could be a bad idea. This could turn into another fire festival. Remember that festival
Yes.
down in the Bahamas that went so wrong? So what he and the sponsors decided to do was actually take their part of the festival to Las Vegas. There were some major corporate sponsors, including Bud Light right here. You can see they actually have a bottle that they've been distributing. You can see the alien on the bottle. But Some of the people here in Rachel said, you know what, you can still come here if you want to. It's been a little disorganized, but they are still trying to have their own music festival here. And they set up this makeshift stage late yesterday. You can see those wooden pillars. They're going to have some music out here later on today. But again, the concern has been really if they have the infrastructure out here. In the distance, you can see all of those porta potties lined up. There's also some food trucks. We've really seen about 100 or so people show up in RVs. You got some RVs back here. People are camping out here, trying to have a good time. A lot of people say they just want to show up for the experience, to see exactly what will happen. We actually talked to a couple people who tell us they still plan on storming Area 51, which is actually over this mountainside, about 40 miles from where we are right now. It is not easy to get to, but some people tell us they plan on hiking there, going up to the front gates and seeing exactly what will happen. So we're not really sure what to expect. We're not really sure exactly how many people to expect out here in the desert. We are expecting some music, and I can tell you that besides this little guy, there haven't been any alien sightings as of yet, but a lot of people out here are really still holding on to hope that they could see something out of this world. Kimberly.
Yeah, Will, so not quite an invasion, more just like a lot of curiosity. Are you planning to stay for the weekend?
It's been a human invasion so far, you could say, and we're just rolling with the punches out here. It depends on how many people come, exactly what happens, so it's a fluid situation on our end. But we are one of the ones who have an RV because there's quite literally nowhere to stay, sleep, eat around here. So we had to get an RV to come in. That's where our entire crew slept last night, if they got any sleep, because some people were playing some pretty loud music. It's turned into quite a party out here, but that's where we're staying for right now.
All right, Will, an experience indeed. Keep us updated on what happens. Good to see you.
You bet.
So before we go, as you guys know, it's Friday, it's almost the weekend, and if you're a football fan, I'm sure you're looking forward to College Game Day on ESPN tomorrow. But last weekend is where it was. There was one sign that went insanely viral. Carson King, a 24-year-old from Iowa, held up a sign looking for some money for beer. You see it right there. And he added his Venmo account, which was genius, and he got more than he could have ever imagined. So I'm here. I'm joined with Carson King right now. Carson, this story is incredible. People have been going crazy about this story. So tell us what happened.
So we went to game day, me and my buddies. I wanted to hold up a sign, so I kind of thought a couple days in advance, you know, what might be funny. I didn't think anything would actually get on TV. I didn't think I'd get anything. I thought the best case scenario from this would be someone in the crowd sees it and is like, oh, that guy's funny. Here's $20 for some Busch lattes.
So you were legitimately only trying to get beer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't think I was going to get anything.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And you have the sign?
Yeah, I have the sign with my Venmo, the original sign. Yeah.
That shows your account.
Shows my account and the famous quote now.
So here's the thing. So you hold it up, it gets on television, but then money actually starts pouring in.
Yeah, within like 30 minutes, my friend Tyler's like, who keeps texting you? Your phone's just blowing up. I was like, oh, well, I'll look. And it ended up being Venmo, and I had over $400.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be shocking to me, just that amount.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then at about $600, I was like, you know, this could be going to something a little bit better than Busch Light, as great as it is.
You were already thinking that during the game.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this could be pretty cool. So I kind of wanted to donate to charity, so I called my parents, my family, and talked to them about it, let them know what I was thinking. We shared some social media posts on like my Facebook and Twitter, and to explain my intentions, which were anything aside from the cost of one case of Busch Light, I would send to the University of Iowa's Stead Family Children's Hospital.
That's amazing. So why did you choose this children's hospital in particular?
So Stead Family, they do great things for all over Iowa. I'm obviously an Iowa State fan, you know, go Cyclones. But University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital, they're incredible. They help the kids out so much and their families. Obviously, Iowa's known for the wave that they do at the end of the first quarter there. It's awesome. So I just kind of figured this would be something cool to help out with, especially in like the spirit of the rivalry, you know. So.
Absolutely. So the question that everyone wants to know is what is the amount, the tally right now, sitting here with me at this moment.
Sitting here with you.
At this moment,
right
where are we
now,
at?
live look at Venmo. It is.
I just don't think I've ever seen anything like this before.
It's crazy. Over $168,000 just on our end.
That is crazy.
And Bush and Venmo messaged me, and they're gonna match whatever we send in by the end of the month. So that times 3 is what our total is.
So
right
Venmo
now.
and Bush are going to match the donations that have already poured in.
Yeah.
And you're giving it all to charity.
All to charity.
That's amazing. And you're a busy guy because you're going to be, you were already on Good Morning America.
Yeah.
And you have a busy schedule after this. Where are you going?
So CNN wanted to talk with me. Fox and Friends wanted to talk with me. ESPN was talking with me a little while ago. So it's really cool.
I think you got a new job coming, Carson.
We're thinking so.
Well, thanks for being with us. Incredible that you decided to do something on a whim, and now it's turned into something really beautiful.
Yeah, it's great to just be able to help out any way I can.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Incredible story, right, guys? Okay, it's the weekend, so continue to take care of yourselves. And if you're around, you can stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. Then check out World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. Happy Friday, and I will see you next week.